Very good. So it's 4:30. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're the Liquor Control Board for today. We have a few items on the agenda. And first of all, Steve, if you want, we have some guests today, so if you don't mind introducing them, we'd appreciate that.
I don't remember anybody's names, but we have some fourth-year nursing students, senior nursing students from NDSU that are here, and they're observing, considering going into public health. So
That's great. Well, thank you for joining us and welcome. And don't be depressed by some of the people that you see before you. There's a lot more competent than Steve and I, right?
thank you.
Okay, so we'll begin. We have a few items on the agenda. Number one is to approve the minutes of the January 17th, 2024 regular meeting and the January 25th, 2024 special meeting. And we have the items before us, and hopefully you got them ahead of time, but if there are any changes or corrections, otherwise we will accept a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number two, review liquor applications, and 2A is Benedict's FAR LLC doing business as Benedict's Fargo, and this is a Class FA license. Steve?
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Angie, who's
Okay.
going to introduce the two liquor applications for today.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So this first application is for the new FA license for Benedict's. This is a full-service breakfast and lunch restaurant. The FA license is full-service, bar allowed. Food sales must exceed alcohol sales. Their operating hours will be 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. daily. And no significant concerns from PD, so this comes to you with recommended approval, or for recommended approval.
Very good. So we have the information in front of us. Are there any questions from anybody about this application? And Steve, I guess my question, and Angie, I'm sorry, you too.
That's okay.
So you've met with them, and so they're aware of the amount of food that has to be served, and that'll be monitored. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I might turn this over to Steve, but they do have to have 50% of their food sales need to,
50% of their sales
Sales.
need to come from food. Angie has been working with Benedict's from the beginning. The initial email actually went to Angie, and so she's been kind of handling this from beginning to end. So they'll have to comply with all of our regulations as far as server training and that type of thing. And then as far as food sales, we do, they report annually what their food and alcohol percentages are. And then we get them into the cycle, and on a 3-year basis, then we have an outside accounting firm that reviews what their sales were. And in fact, later on at the end of the agenda, we have the report from last year from Brady Martz. So,
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, do we have a motion?
I so move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And 2B is FGI Hospitality doing business as Hilton Garden Inn, and this is a Class ABH license.
yes, thank you. So this is a transfer from Fargo Lodging Associates to FGI Hospitality. They will continue doing business as Hilton Garden Inn. The ABH is a full-service license. The ABH requires the hotel to have 100 rooms or more. It is a full-service bar. And there were no concerns from PD, and this comes to you with recommended approval.
Very good. And if you don't mind me asking a question, so obviously when we have a business like this, where Hilton might be almost like a franchise, I see that we have a manager, and so does that help? I mean, is that who the contact is going to be? And so from the perspective of law enforcement, all that is, are they aware of that that's who they will be in charge of contact?
yes, very much so. And it's actually the manager was named just not too long ago, right as we were going through the application process. And it's Tony Nasello, so well known in the community. The Lost Italian, I believe, is what his he was called back in the day, but he's also run other hotels and that type of thing. So I think he's been a pretty good operator in the past, and not aware of any concerns from any of his past business operations.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Otherwise, if we're ready, a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 3 on the agenda is the Police Department monthly report. 3A is the general report, and 3B is the failed compliance checks of Faux Delicious and Royal Liquors. Chief Zabulski.
Good afternoon, everyone. In terms of the monthly report, not much activity. I don't really have anything to report unless there's any specific questions on any of these particular incidents by anyone on the board.
Does anybody have any specific questions? Go ahead, Chief. Thank you.
Okay. And then moving over to the compliance checks. The first one involved was Faux Delicious at 623 NP Avenue. 2 minors entered the restaurant, each ordered a bottle of Corona beer. The server, who was also not server trained, brought over both minors the beer and then walked away from the beer to ring up the bell, or the bill rather, at which time the officer approached, identified himself, spoke with her, and that's where she said she had not been server trained. And both individuals showed IDs that indicated they were born in 2004, but apparently the math just didn't, she didn't do the math right, and served the beer to them. So that was referred to the city prosecutor. We're recommending, I guess, violations of both the serving the minors and the failure to be server trained. Do you want to do these separate, I take it, or?
Yeah, we'll do them separate if that's okay, Chief.
Yes,
So
sir.
I don't know if there's any questions, and I guess one of the things that we've are considering is and maybe this is in the future, but if someone misses and serves a minor, to require them to have some type of scanner. And I think that's kind of what, and maybe this is something we'll consider in the future, and maybe Nancy, I'm looking at you for advice. Is that something that we should consider now, or should we wait until we actually get things more going? But we have done this in the past, and so can you help us with that?
That is not something that is required by the ordinances presently. That has been a discussion point in the past, but it is not something that would be available under the ordinances as they presently exist.
So as of now, that is not an option that we have, but is that something that you could possibly look at including in the future?
I think it has been part of the scanner requirement discussions.
Okay.
And I think those are coming back to you. We've now had a couple of demonstrations on scanners, and at some point you'll be asked to be making a recommendation as to whether or not to make them mandatory or when to require those scanners.
So it's something that we have to make sure that we have a legal, we're doing it
Correct.
legally correctly, and we're still not at that point. And I guess, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but we don't have the scanner kind of program rolling yet either. But I just wanted to at least put it on the front burner that we're considering these things. So I apologize for that, but I do, if you don't mind, I do think it's something that we would at least be interested in learning more about.
And I think that's fine. And if you want to direct an ordinance draft or further discussion on the scanners, we have had discussions in the past, but we haven't gotten that direction. So I think it's a good discussion to have. Do you want to make them mandatory? Do you want to make them required if there's a failure? What is the technology that you want to have required under those circumstances? Some of the
Okay,
discussion points.
So to me, I think we maybe need to have this be a discussion we'll set aside in the future, but I'll just give you my immediate, we're hoping that it's voluntary, and we actually have some people that are already interested in participating, but in the future, I believe we would like to have this option for people that serve minors, that one of the options would be to have them be required to have scanners. But and I'm sorry, Chief, for taking up your time, but I do think we also want to make sure we have the scanners and we have the system in place before we start doing all these things. Does that make sense to you?
I certainly understand. I'm just not sure that we've gotten the direction. to
Right,
present
can I
that
make
to
a
you.
suggestion?
Yes, go ahead,
Yeah,
Chief.
so I think it would be appropriate for the board to motion the city attorney, or the commission to direct the city attorney to study, review, and propose potential ordinance recommendations relative to the use of ID scanners in licensed liquor establishments. That motion only sets in motion that whole process that we're talking about that would involve all of the conversations and study, but at least at that juncture, the city attorney's got the direction from the commission to do that work, meet with our folks in the field, look at the availability of these particular items and how we might want to use them, whether it's mandatory or ad hoc, or, we had a presentation on the grant program. So I think really that would be appropriate in my mind for the board to do that so that it goes to commission, the city attorney has direction. It's not definitive direction. It's really just to start all of that process. And then we could from there go forward with here's where we're at.
Okay. And so I apologize for anybody else that has any comments about this. But from my perspective, we had the demonstration and it was very impressive. And we've had people that are interested in volunteering, a couple of businesses. And to me, that's a great sign. And so to me, we would like to start with that. That will start. But Chief, you're saying we should maybe start getting the other things prepared for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done enough. We've got the information. We're seeing the gaps. And again, both of these are examples. I haven't talked about the second one yet of exactly what we're talking about, where, there's a lot of discussions about how they should be used. And those discussions still have to be had. But the statistical anomaly of me walking into Full Delicious on one day at one afternoon in the middle of nowhere and them completely failing as they did, to me is a strong indication that we've got issues not just in regular bars, but across all of these establishments. And, again, the whole decision about mandatory or voluntary, I mean, we've got people that are voluntary, it's great. I just think that in order for us to put a good product forward, I think the city attorney has to get direction from the commission to start putting those pieces together.
And I will say, so we've had some meetings in between, and so we do have some funding. And so these scanners that we were shown the last time, we do have funding, and we are going to have some, and we have people that are interested. And so that's why I really lean towards voluntary to start out with, because I think what's going to happen is a lot of businesses will find out this is very beneficial. It's going to help their business in a lot of different ways, and some that we might not even know about. So that's why I know mandatory is a lot simpler, but I think voluntary, especially if they're free, I think there's a lot of businesses, and I think a lot of people are waiting to see how they work in the real world. And I think once we have a couple where they work well, I think that will be very appealing to the other businesses. So anyway, so I apologize. We are way off track, so I apologize for that. But I hope this is. Does this sound like we're giving you the right direction, Nancy? Are we heading in the right direction, do you think?
I think if I could just,
Go ahead.
I think that she actually needs the board to make a motion to direct the commission, to direct her to start that work. And that doesn't define the parameters, like you said. I think those parameters are all for discussion. I think that's the motion that we need to have.
Well, Chief, you're the expert on the motion, because but I also want to make sure we make a correct motion. And the other thing is I want to make sure everybody here on the Liquor Control Board is comfortable too. So would it be better to wait and have one written up before that might be better. Go ahead, Nancy.
No, I do agree with the chief on that one. It's generally, if you're giving the direction, you're making that recommendation to the Board of City Commissioners that an ordinance be drafted, and generally with some terms, if you want it to be voluntary scanner, and if you want then to add a mandatory scanner in the event of a license failure, which is what I'm hearing you say today, that would be the recommendation. And then if approved by the City Commission,
Okay.
then I would be drafting that.
So if this
that
is
ordinance.
So if this is okay with everybody on the board, we'll have Nancy work on a proposed motion, and then we'll bring it at the next meeting, because I want to be able to have everyone see it ahead of time, and also have people be able to come up and talk about what their perspective is. Is that okay with everybody? So that'll be to put on the agenda for the next meeting. And so, once again, I apologize for getting off track, Chief Zbolski, but
Yeah.
to me, it kind of goes together. And so
I would agree. Yeah, no, I think the comments are appropriate. That was a good discussion, so I appreciate that. Do you need a motion on the first one? Do you need to take some action?
Yes, we do. And so I guess, and I don't know, that's the wish of the group here. What are our options? And maybe you can, it's a first violation for Faux Delicious, is that correct? Steve?
Actually, this is a second violation for Faux Delicious. I'd have to go back though to see when they had their other one. Maybe the 18 months has expired, but in either case, there really are no options. We changed the ordinance. There's no appeal anymore. This is either going to be a $500 administrative penalty or a $750 if it's a second violation. I'll determine that and get that sent out correctly. Yeah.
So, and I guess my question is there anybody here from Faux Delicious that wishes to speak? If they want to have an opportunity, they sure can. But to me, we have to know, you will let us know whether it's the first or second, because I mean, that will impact the penalty.
Yes, I'll make sure that the board is aware of what the penalty is.
Okay. Are there any questions for the chief, I guess, for the incident or anything like that?
I do need a motion to find a violation, and then I'll let you know what that violation was at the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to find a violation with the Faux Delicious situation here and have Steve advise us whether it's a $500 or $750 penalty at the next meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And now we'll move on.
Excuse me, if I could just make a point of clarification. So Steve will send out the violation of the finding for Liquor Control Board.
Yes.
And they do have an opportunity to request a hearing on that at the city commission.
Yep.
So you will just identify if it's a first or second in that and just let you know what that determination is, if that's acceptable, so that process can move forward.
Yep, that's great. Thank you. So the next one is Royal Liquors and Chief.
And thank you. And if I could just ask for a point of clarification, is the board going to take action on the second violation for Faux Delicious for failing to serve or train?
I guess that's a question for the group then.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
And so, and for further discussion, can you clarify that then too for us, Steve? I mean, I guess that's a question. Is that considered a second violation or go ahead?
No, so we haven't instituted the penalty structure where, would it be like a driver's license where we're, the first violation, second violation. So this is in a different track. We had failure to server train and then failure, or then also failure by serving a minor. So it's two separate tracks. First violation in each track. Well, I think it's the first violation in the serving a minor.
Okay.
Clearly is the first violation on a server train. So,
Okay.
So that's a $500 administrative penalty there too.
Any other questions on that one? Otherwise, if we're ready, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll move to Royal Liquors, Chief.
Okay. This incident involved, again, utilizing those same minors with identification, entered the Royal Liquor establishment, 3000 block of 25th Street South. Brought a pack of White Claw, alcoholic beverage, up to the counter. The server never checked their IDs at all, sold the White Claw to the minors. At that point, they exited the store and alerted the officer who came in and identified himself. The server indicated it was his fourth day on the job. He was not server trained. He said he didn't do the math right, but according to both of the juveniles, he never even looked at their ID. They also have a scanner, which he says he just didn't know how to use. So again, I think there's two violations here that we would refer for your consideration.
So this is just a question, but don't most places have a thing right up there? It says by this date, you have to be this old to be 21. Isn't that like a common practice?
I think, actually, in this one, I think this is the one where the guy said he should have looked at the, at that sign. Yeah, but you're right.
I'm not very good at math, so I guess I should not be throwing stones, but I'm just saying, to me, if you have that sitting right in front of you,
Well, he didn't look at the IDs to begin with in this particular case.
okay,
I've got a quick question, Commissioner.
go ahead.
So we don't have a grace period from the hiring date anymore since we started with the, okay.
No,
So that has to be done before they hit the floor.
right.
Yep. Okay.
And that's a responsibility of the business now. That's not, we've made some changes, and now we can do that online, so you can do that anytime. And so I'm very happy with some of the changes we made, and so you kind of have to put, and the sympathetic side is, we know it's hard to hire people, and it's hard to fill hours, and I know it's a challenge, so it's not like we're not aware of what the business, the business challenges are. But on the flip side, it's like, that's what you sign up for. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, if we're ready to make a motion?
Motion to find in violation for the failure of the compliance check.
And do you have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And just a point of clarification, yes, is that both violations that we're talking
That
about?
was just.
I believe that included both, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and my Cracker Jack staff here found out for me, Faux Delicious failed their first compliance check on 9/7 of '22, and so that's within the 18-month period. And so this would be a second failure, so it's a $750 administrative penalty.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So now, thank you very much, Chief. Now we'll move on to other items. 4A is the de-escalation training wrap-up. And while Steve's coming up, we attended it, and it was excellent. Comparing it to the one that we went to before, this one was very well done. It was former law enforcement, and I think it was excellent, not just for bars and restaurants, but I learned a lot that in lots of different ways, and so it was really good. And so I'm so happy that we did it. We had very good attendance, and so I'm sorry, Steve, but go ahead.
No, that's exactly why I put this on, was just, I know we had a number of the board members that attended, and I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity to talk about that de-escalation training. The response or the feedback that we got was generally very positive. We had some businesses that had multiple people there, including the Windbreak had, I believe, 9 people there. And so, I just think it was, it was kind of a pilot for us. We didn't really have enough attendance to fully cover the cost. And so one of the things when Robin Litkey was here from Fargo-Cass Public Health and was showing us the scanners, she was mentioning that she may have some funding that we might be able to put on a second session of this. I was disappointed that certain businesses weren't there. There are some that have had some issues with some of their door attendants, and it would have been nice to see a couple of them there. But generally speaking, I think that everybody was pleased with what they learned. And like you said, it doesn't have to necessarily be just for the hospitality industry. Some of the things that we learned would have been appropriate regardless of what type of a business that you're in.
So can I ask Steve if we want to do some in the future? I would like to at least pursue that, and maybe you can let us know about what the funding and what we need to do. But I just think it was an excellent excellent thing. And so if we can, and it might be good to offer it at different times and things like that. So I think the other thing, most of the people that attended it, they will hopefully encourage other people to attend it. And so that I think it will be something that will grow from here. At least that's what I hope. And I don't know if anybody there were some people that are in the audience today that were there. Maybe you want to talk a little about anybody else here that was there that wants to talk about it. That'd be great.
Yeah, I attended the morning one, and I think it was even for the money and the training was well worth it. You talk about a presenter that was extremely knowledgeable, and I think it was an hour and a half, and I would go to it again. I think it was that beneficial, and I agree that it's not only for hospitality business, but any different customer service or any different business. There were so many different takeaways that he had, and I think it was a true benefit to have someone in our community that has that much experience as that officer had, and the examples and the way that he did the whole presentation was well worth it. And I think maybe the first de-escalation training, maybe the word of mouth was maybe this one was going to be more similar, but I would guarantee that the feedback that other people will have would get a very big benefit out of going to that. And if the attendance at a certain time would not be there, I'd say open it up to other different businesses as well. Coming from a big box retail background, there was a lot of that training that I've been through on the other company, but I think it was extremely beneficial, and actually it had a lot of takeaways from it. So I think it was really great.
Yeah, I was unfortunately not able to attend, but I know there are a lot of business owners here. So I would encourage you guys, if you went or had employees that went, keep us in the loop about if any of these techniques were useful moving forward. I mean, if there's anything specific that you learned at the de-escalation training that now you've been able to put into practice, I think that would be great for us to hear about and know whether we should keep doing this. So definitely feel free to talk to us and let us know if that's something that was practically useful for you guys, so we can potentially offer it again in the future.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Go
I'll
ahead,
make
Bob.
it quick. It's interesting watching this development. Steve, I give you kudos for getting this in the slot and getting it done. I think this is going to evolve really fast. And, he mentioned a little bit at the seminar that he did, and I agree was excellent. But in talking to some of the bar owners in the area and stuff, the change in dram shop insurance rising really fast. Some people can't get it if they've had problems, et cetera. And even more than that, the liability that's coming about, some of the problems we've had with accidents after they leave the bar and stuff. I mean, this is something I think all bar and restaurant owners really have to put an exclamation mark about what's going on in the future. We've got this strange world of chemicals out there mixed with drinking and stuff, and you're being tasked to deal with these people. So, I have a lot of empathy for what they go through, but these type of trainings I think are going to be invaluable. And I wouldn't be surprised if this turned into, if you continue to do them quarterly or however you look at it, that they're going to be really a big thing, because all employees should go through this. It's also a life lessons too about just dealing with people in public. Even for me, I was thinking in my mind, well, what if I'm walking down the street and somebody approaches me? What are some of the ways you can handle to diffuse things too? So it's not just for bouncers; it's for life. So I was 100% impressed.
Very good. So that's great. So if you have anything else to add, otherwise I think we'll move on. To the next item on the agenda is open discussion regarding annual background checks and manager change reporting.
Yes, Commissioner, thank you for that. So we have had on our plate here for a while now, talking about this manager background, the annual investigations and some of the changes that would need to be made. And so I included the notes that Nancy had prepared previously from our brown bag, and they're in your packet. But I think it's just an opportunity now. We have it on the agenda, and if there's anybody from the industry that'd like to speak to these two issues, that was kind of our goal at this point.
So if anybody wants to get up and talk, they're sure welcome to. And I guess my question is, so we do other licenses, the city does. Do we do background checks for some of the other ones? And maybe and maybe you can just talk a little bit about that, because we do them for other different specialties. Go ahead.
There are certain businesses where, if public safety is a concern, that we do background checks. So for instance, the taxi cab business is one where we do background checks. What we've done is required the businesses to do the background checks and then maintain that paperwork, and then we've hired an external auditor that goes out and reviews to make sure that they've done those steps, those things that they're supposed to do. I'm not thinking of any others right now. The most of the background checks we do, of course, are in this field here with the hospitality industry. But certainly we do it in other business ventures also.
No, that's great. And I just want to make sure that we're consistent. But the other thing is I also want to make sure that we're not giving a whole bunch of work to your staff. Is there some of this that we, like similar to what you just talked about with taxis, where they have to be responsible for some of this and keep you updated, or however you want to word it?
Yeah, and we've done that. We've made those changes with the server training, for instance. It's now complacent on the businesses to make sure that anybody that they're employing is properly trained. So that's something that we moved from our plate to theirs and put that on them. We made it so it was available online. And so part of their, the thought process is that when they're filling out their W-4 and their onboarding information, they take that hour and go through the server training on the North Dakota Safety Council.
And I just want to say, one of the reasons that we have this manager change is a part of that is for law enforcement. So if something happens, and also for you, Steve, from the city's perspective, if something happens, then they know who to contact. And that's that. So it's a legitimate reason from my perspective. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's a huge part of this change is our frustration that we had in the past with having current managers listed. The other part is from police side is that we've got owners that have once they pass the background check and then they're never looked at again, and so that's probably not right either. And so we need to be doing that and looking at those going through that process on a regular basis. And then if they change managers, we want to be notified, almost immediately. So those are some of the changes. I think that we went through this process and we've talked about it long enough that we've got it figured out that we're going to have to go to a quarterly basis on our renewals so that it doesn't become burdensome. And once we get through that first year, it's going to be very I'm not going to say easy, but it'll be very routine for us to be able to process 1/4 of our liquor license applications every quarter. So,
Okay. Any comments or questions? Otherwise, do you need go ahead, Bob.
Question. Steve, are we still having issues with out-of-state corporations that don't answer their calls or whatever, our calls?
well, there was one restaurant in particular that was proving difficult for us, and through that whole process, they've ended up not renewing their license, so they don't have a license anymore. I would say the vast majority of the companies that we deal with, both local and national chains, are very easy to deal with and are very responsive to our inquiries. If we need to know some information from them, we usually hear back relatively quickly.
Okay, so this is your opportunity, going once, going twice. If anybody wants to get up and speak, you can, but otherwise we'll move on. And so anything else to add? But otherwise we'll move on to C, open discussion regarding stream of service. And Nancy, maybe you can get us started off a little bit about that. And if you don't mind, I'll just give you my, to me, we have some examples of what we're supposed to follow. And so is that what you have in mind, that so it's consistent with some of the other things that we have on the books?
So yes, the stream of service we've used for who needs to be server trained. And so we've included that language here. We can't be less restrictive than state law. So I want to make sure that we're not opening up the statute to allow people who would otherwise be required under state law to not be able to be in an establishment. So the intent was to clarify this board's finding that there was some language that was unclear. And so essentially it will say everybody will need to be 21 and server trained if they are not directly dealing with food service, hostess, cook, those kinds of things in that separate area. So it's really intended to be a clarification based on this board's finding that a door attendant who is responsible for checking identification did not need to be 21. Again, it's clarification on that point.
So
Make
are
sure
you
we're
going to
compliant.
give us this list? I don't know what the plan is as far as updating this.
I had previously presented
Okay.
a revised ordinance during the brown bag, and I
Okay.
think you just wanted to have some more discussion about that before you made a motion on this and the manager change to send your recommendation up to city commission, who again will finalize the ordinance for approval. That's who would ultimately be responsible for that approval.
Okay. Any questions about this? Steve?
So
you-
again, it's an opportunity for, the people in the industry to weigh in on the clarification of, who should be, who is allowed to be under 21 and working in a facility that serves alcohol. We just wanted to clarify that in our ordinances. Hopefully we can do that in a way that we don't put ourselves in conflict with the state. But at this point, I think what we would be looking for on both B and C is a motion to request that the city commission direct Nancy to amend the ordinances to kind of keep that process moving along.
So I'm not that bright, so let's try to boil this down and make it a little more simple. So basically, what Nancy's going to attempt to do is to make sure that we are in compliance with what the state laws are. And there was a few that we need to update, and so essentially that's what we're going to be doing. But basically, we have to be in compliance with the state anyway, so basically that's what we're doing. We're just updating it so we're in compliance with the state regulations. Is that
The state regulations, I would say, don't clearly define who's in that stream of service. If you remember right, it says the people that can work in a liquor establishment are bus boys and bus girls and hostesses and that type of thing. And so what we're going to do is try to add some language on our part that identifies the people that are in that stream of service.
So is this too much to ask Nancy if you could have the actual text or do you need to have us make a motion first before are we instructing you to make the text, or can you do you have to have the instruction first?
Yep. That's basically it but since it's an advisory board, we make the request to the city commission to
Okay.
direct Nancy to prepare the ordinance. Then once the ordinance is prepared, she can bring it back to this board to look at that text. Does that make sense?
So
It does.
if I could add, you actually did receive kind of draft text at the time of our informational meeting on this. So I think it was that language that we were looking for. There was a discussion of defining stream of service, which I think is something that we need to add. But I think if you're ready to move it up, that language was proposed. You would just make a motion to approve a change to that ordinance and recommend city commission move forward. It wouldn't need to necessarily come back to this body.
See, I told these college students are going to be sitting there going, this guy is in charge of this committee. This is pathetic. This guy is not that bright.
You're thorough.
And he was a NDSU football player too, so not making any judgments.
So if I can help you out, I think the first motion would be to approve the owner-manager changes as previously presented If that motion then passes, it's a recommendation to city commission. If they want to make those changes, they'll direct me to do that, and it'll go back to city commission. Same thing, make the motion to approve the changes to the ordinance regarding who may work in a liquor establishment. And if you want to approve that motion, it will go up to city commission on a recommendation. So those are the two motions I'd be looking for.
Got it. So if there's any further discussion, I apologize for making it more complicated than it really was. But I guess the other thing, I would be interested if any of the owners of the bars want to get up and talk. But basically what we're trying to do is clarify this so you know what the rules are. And we're trying to do it so it's compliant with the state rules, and which is what we have to do. And so basically that's what we're attempting to do.
Correct.
And real quick, and just to
Bob.
be clear, Nancy, so this will come back through us again and get with another advice back to the city commission.
No, it would not need to come back to you if your recommendation is change the manager background. If your recommendation is to change the language, we'll send it up to city commission. They're the ultimate decision on that.
Okay. So I guess my only problem was that we're kind of skipping a chance if there's something that in the actual wording is controversial amongst the trade or amongst us, that we won't get a chance to debate that here. But if.
Could it be possible that it would come back to us before it goes to the city commission, or is that how it goes?
Typically, if it's a recommendation from this body, it would go up to city commission, and then that's where that debate and discussion would happen, because that would be, we'd have it on for receive and file, first reading and second reading. So before it becomes final, there is an opportunity at the city commission level to make that determination.
So I guess, Steve, this would be my request then, if we could, once Nancy completes this and before it goes to the city commission, if it could be sent out to us, but also could be sent out to the businesses, so they have an opportunity, so they know that they can come and comment on it. Because I do think that's important. We want to have them be able to have opportunity to say, hey, this works, or hey, this doesn't work, or it's going to cause me challenges. So I think that's part of our concern. Do you get what I'm requesting, though?
Yes.
So once Nancy completes it, then to have it forwarded to all of us, and also so it's known what the date is, when it's going to be opportunity for public comment at the city commission. Can we do that?
We can certainly do that.
Okay. We have a commenter come on up, and if you don't mind introducing yourself, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Dwayne Litton, Duffy's Bar. I have a question about, are we, as the participants in this process, or you as our board, are we obligated to have a public hearing on the questions before you now?
The answer to that is no. I think that the board is seeking your input now. I think this might be the second or third time these discussions have been had. So I think we're at a point where we could move it forward if the industry has no additional comments.
And that's why I requested that once the wording is done, we forward it to you, and then you can contact the city commissioners or contact us. And so that's your opportunity, if that's okay. I think I'm comfortable with that, if everybody else is comfortable with that up here.
Yeah, I'd like to see it back. I mean, I think one of the ordinances we struggle with is over intoxication. And we're the first line of defense, and we're trying to read that ordinance. We're trying to make sense of whether 3 drinks or 30 drinks is too much. So I think we should take a look at it before we send it up.
Yep. Okay. So if we're ready for the motion, we would accept a motion.
I'm going to go back to B here and motion to approve the change regarding owner and manager changes and background checks.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Nancy, does that follow what you were looking for as far as direction? Okay, any other comments? Go ahead. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And D, the last item on the agenda, Brady Mart's food percentage audit.
Excuse me, we should still take action on C.
I'll make a motion that we direct the city attorney to move forward with updating the ordinance on stream of service.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And D, Brady Mart's food percentage audit. Steve?
So as was mentioned earlier, with the FA license and a number of our other licenses, they are required to sell more food than alcohol. And with our golf license, it's more food than alcohol during the non-golf season. And one of the changes that we made, because I don't know if you're aware, but the operators at the golf course itself is run by the park district, but state law does not allow a municipality or a sub to hold a liquor license, and so they have to go out and find an operator to, run the bar and the food cart and all that kind of stuff. And so they have had a tremendous difficulty over the years keeping somebody in there. So one of the changes that we made to the FA Golf license was to make it optionally seasonal. So a little bit of a story there to get us to the point where the only failure we had on the food percentages was the winter season at one of the golf courses, and they have now elected, and that was during 22, and then when they renewed their license for 23, they renewed on a seasonal basis. So at this point, I just wanted to report that and let you know that I don't think that we've got any concerns on that end.
Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you. Just one piece I forgot to mention to the board. We'll put it under the other category. Tomorrow morning, the police department will be pushing out a press release announcing the completion of, I would say, a pretty significant investigative effort relative to some of the issues we've discussed today. I think it will be of interest to the board and will inform some of those other discussions. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And as we provide more details, we can talk next meeting. Thank you.
Very good. Anything else to add?
But the only other thing, Commissioner, that I wanted to mention, you've mentioned it a couple times, is the scanners. And we did have a couple of businesses. One reached out directly to Robin and is working out the details of getting a scanner that they can use there. And another one reached out to me, and I put them in contact with Robin. The other thing was that the gentleman that was here secured a number of other scanners, and so I think we have a lot of them that will be available for us to use. I did reach out directly to a couple of downtown businesses, both of which said no to me, that they did not want to use scanners at their places, or that they had already purchased a scanner. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give that little bit of an update. And Commissioner, like you said, I think that once these scanners get in place, people see the operation of them. I'm hoping that we'll see more voluntary use of the scanner. I'm certainly not opposed to saying if you fail liquor compliance check, down the road, we'd have to obviously change ordinance, but maybe that's something that we put in and just say, that you mandatory to have a scanner if you fail compliance check.
So I guess that's our message today is if you're interested in participating, contact the city auditor's office. We will have some available and we do have a grant, so they're not going to be, there's no charge.
Free of charge.
So to me, it's a good opportunity to see how they work. One of the things I'm very excited about it because I think once they get in the real world, I think that people will be able to ask questions and things like that. So the key thing I think is to have a benefit to the business of most businesses have a list of people that they don't allow that have some kind of bad experience. And so if they can have that list built into that scanner, that saves them a ton of additional work. And by able to just say, no, you're one of our prohibited customers, you can't come. And so I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's successful. From the scanner that we saw, it was very impressive. And so I think it's going to be, but once we have them in our businesses in the real world, then the other owners can talk about it and learn from it, and so can we. And so that's actually, Bob brought up that. So we would like to have an update maybe in the future, just how it's going and things like that. So. With that, it's 5:19. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Nancy, you have
Sorry,
one?
Commissioners, Steve's Crackpot staff pointed out when the Faux Delicious violation was. Actually, under 1215, it's the foregoing penalties for failing compliance checks will be those offenses occurring within a 1-year period. So that was a change. So it was beyond the 1-year period, so Faux Delicious would be a first offense.
See, there you go.
See,
We
I got a crackpot staff, but it, it doesn't get through this thick head of mine. So, I was still on 18 months. So,
Steve,
okay.
Steve, at least it wasn't poor mathematics.
Very good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are adjourned. Have a great afternoon.